Hello and welcome! This week of development went a slightly different direction than I was expecting, but I did get a lot done and I'm excited to share it all with you. There's been a lot of development of the overarching story, some big changes to our main character, a new system for our relics, and the reveal of a character that I've been struggling with since the beginning. Father. So let's get started. I'm Dryden Thomas, and this is day 35 of my 100-day quest to finish Disinherited. It's a side-scrolling roguelike where you catch, throw, and parry your way through Death's domain to kill the Grim Reaper and claim eternal life, all to spite your father who cut you out of his will. And that father finally has a face. But first, let's start with the updates to our main character, Samuel. He got up to some new stuff this week. His animations have been due for an upgrade for a while now, especially the attack, which is literally 2 frames. But before doing that, I needed to do some of the harder work to finalize the character design. In the competition where this game started, I had less than 1 week to develop a fully fledged game loop with working mechanics. That meant I had very little time to come up with a character, much less perfect any frame-by-frame animations. Given that, I think he turned out surprisingly well and full of personality, but definitely flawed. So I did my first ever character turnaround to analyze where I might have made mistakes, and then I could make some critical, detailed decisions. The original model's face was somewhat askew, which you can really see in the positioning of the glasses. I had thought to make this into a stylistic choice, but he just looks better with the proportions corrected. And then there were little details, making the feet sit perfectly flat on the ground, giving his cane hand a slightly more developed shape, and showing the inside of his overcoat. When I showed my Discord the developments, they asked to see the skeleton, and given the nature of the game, I couldn't help myself. And you really need to see this video response made by Ayla.
I like your hair.
Oh, this old thing? Yeah, it's actually just an exposed nerve ending, but thanks.
So then I was finally ready to animate a new mechanic. If you've been watching from the beginning, you know that the cane bash has gone through a lot of changes. It used to have a really long wind-up, which made it so satisfying to master that timing and just smack a bone back into a skeleton's face. But it became a lot harder to have that wind-up when the bash also had to act as a parry for physical abilities. So I took away the wind-up and made it almost instantaneous, like the nail in Hollow Knight. But one of my original playtesters, who happens to be an action platforming beast, by the way, reached out to say that they thought the game would really lose something from getting rid of that wind-up. So I gave it some thought, and here's my solution. You get 2 different bashes. A quick tap on the button gives you a quick bash, and a longer press gives you a heavy bash similar to the old one. The quick bash is great for parrying fast incoming attacks, but it only deals 1 damage, and parried projectiles won't do as much. The heavy bash can do all the same things, but because the timing is more difficult, and you can't walk while doing it, you're rewarded with 5 damage, your parries with the heavy bash will stun enemies faster, and parried projectiles deal upgraded damage. I think this is going to do a lot to raise the skill ceiling of Disinherited. Another change to his ability set, I've reworked the jump. It was feeling slightly underpowered after I increased his gravity the other week, since he now couldn't even make it across a 3-unit gap. But with a jump, you're really tuning 3 factors: the speed of the ascent, the duration of the ascent, and the speed of the fall. And those all add up to the duration and height of the entire jump. The other detail that needs to be there is you need to be able to adjust the height of your jump by how long you press the button down. Variable height jumping is key to any kind of platformer, so it has to be gotten right. However, the way that I have the movement code written, these factors were interfering with each other. When I had the height and ascent speed right, the ascent duration was too short. I could have a slower ascent speed, but then the overall jump would be too long. A fast jump felt good, but it ruined the variable jump height because it always started too fast. Once I realized that though, then I had a good solution. I ended up rewriting the code so that the jump increases in speed the longer you hold the button down. At first I had it increasing linearly, but that kind of looked like you had a mini jetpack on. So instead I implemented this easing function. As the ascent goes on, you ride this parabolic curve that quickly climbs from 0 to near the maximum velocity, and then eases into the max as the ascent ends. It makes no sense from a real physics perspective, but from a gameplay perspective and game feel perspective, it works really well. Now you can easily get whatever height of jump you want as a player. One last thing to add some more fluidity, I made it so that the dodge roll can now transition directly into the jump animation, and your momentum from the dodge is preserved if you do that. You can still turn around in midair, but you lose your speed boost when you do. This is not for the faint of heart, since you can really fling yourself around with it. And then one of my prayer bead upgrades had been feeling very sad, the Sunstone bead. This used to raise your jump speed and therefore your height, but in practice it left the jump feeling very floaty and untuned. But now it has a new life. It's everyone's favorite nonsensical mechanic. The one, the only, the double jump! For each Sunstone bead you get to add another air jump. You can stack them forever, I won't stop you. And while we're on the subject of relics and jumping, let's take a look at this week's new relic, the hydraulic boots. These will let you use your feet as weapons, bouncing on enemies' heads for a small amount of damage, stun damage, and added mobility. Just like that one other hero. I added a new system to the relics overall, too. Themes. These are basically just a way to group relics by what kind of stats they augment. Right now there are 9. Light, dark, dodge, health, defense, bash, throw catch, mobility, and viatica, aka money. Each one has its own color, which outlines the relics. Now some relics straddle multiple themes, so I expanded my outline shader to be able to do a little gradient effect. And if you're worried that the color coding will make things hard for colorblind players, I'll be reinforcing this theming with icons and text. Having this system in place is going to help when I want to pull some strings in the player's favor, like having relic synergies show up more often than random chance would dictate, for example. And now we come to the part with the new character, Charles Durant, the father. He is going to be such an important figure in the story of Disinherited, and his design has to communicate a lot, so I've been struggling with what to do with him since the beginning. So I started by making a list of the things that I know about him. Number 1, he's very wealthy. He's a banker. He's very serious and cold and feared by those he supervised. He was distant with Samuel, if not outright hostile, and did not approve of Samuel's pursuit of poetry. And he died descending into the catacombs to pursue eternal life, just like Samuel's doing right now. He's the antagonist of the story and the last boss you face before fighting the Grim Reaper. Now, any antagonist should be the hero's largest obstacle in obtaining their goal, but that's not all. A great antagonist also challenges a hero's internal values, creating a friction that heats up the underlying themes of the story. Batman's fight against Joker pits order against chaos and sincerity against nihilism. In Les Miserables, Javert's pursuit of Jean Valjean shows us the contrast between justice and mercy. The key conflict between Samuel and Charles, as I see it, is idealism versus pragmatism. The young poet versus the old banker. Where Samuel wants freedom and beauty, Charles wants security and efficiency. Where Samuel is altruistic, Charles is misanthropic. But it isn't all in our hero's favor. Samuel's inexperience and fear highlights Charles's competence and determination. In the design, I wanted to draw out these contrasts. The clearest contrast is that Charles is large and Samuel is small. His clothing is more elaborate, showing his wealth, and it's generally darker to set a more serious tone. Facially, his features are angular as opposed to Samuel's rounded ones, and his eyebrows show anger rather than worry. Then we have the obvious difference of the dangling spine and the bone arm, but we won't get into that right now. It's not all differences though. They still use the same color palette, wear top hats, use canes, and on Charles, Samuel's glasses become a teeny tiny monocle. From here, and with some discussions with trusted friends, I was able to develop the narrative a lot further, but you won't be getting any more spoilers out of me. If you've watched this far, you might be enjoying it, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, why not ring the bell? Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.